The Constitution has been amended many times before. The people who wrote the Constitution provided very wisely that it could be amended. They realized that they could not write a perfect document, and that as good as it might be for their time, they knew that it wouldn't be good enough for the future times, because they knew the times change. The constitutional provision providing for a right to bear arms, the Second Amendment, was not written for today. It was written for a time when slavery was one of the most important financial institutions of this country, and it was put in the Constitution so that people who owned slaves or lived in areas where there were slaves would be able to control their slaves with lethal violence if necessary. That's why we have a Second Amendment, and we clearly, obviously, indisputably don't need guns anymore because we're afraid of slave uprisings or runaway slaves. The world, in a sense, is much smaller than it once was. On the international scene, we're learning, finally, that we can no longer use our might and our muscle and our military whenever and however we want without consequences. But that military might is based upon an idea that violence is an appropriate way to respond to problems. And similarly, and very much tied in, the idea that people should have guns in their homes and carry them around on the street comes from that same philosophy that violence is a proper and productive way to approach the world. If we are going to make progress and make this a safer world for everyone, we're going to have to be willing to say we no longer endorse the idea that everyone can have guns. Most people don't have guns, don't want guns, and are tired of the violence that goes along with all of the guns. Most people would like to do something about that violence. But standing in the way is the Second Amendment. Is there anything about people today that tells us that we are too timid to even talk about amending our Constitution? Other generations have done it on a pretty regular basis. When things change, they change the Constitution if necessary. Well, it's necessary now because we have a Supreme Court which has basically said guns everywhere. We have a National Rifle Association which says guns everywhere, and we have guns everywhere. The only way to do something about it at this point is to amend the Constitution and get rid of the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment. And there's no reason why we shouldn't do it.